once we have all this
Yeah.
camera, so it feels
You
more
were
like
me.
you're talking at me.
You were
No,
me.
you're sitting fine, I think.
Oh,
Anyway,
am I?
it looks like
Uh-huh.
I'm just a little nervous about the batteries on these things.
Religious, up
Mhm.
until that time. I don't think the family was strictly religious, but they were Presbyterian and went to the Presbyterian church.
Mhm.
Well, he had gotten, so he wanted to become a minister.
And how old was he at this time?
17.
Okay.
So then um, he he had written, I found out later when I found the Life of Christ here in the front of the book, his minister gave it to him because he had written 3 sermons for him. So apparently he was even thinking of writing sermons when he was that young.
Wow.
Well, anyway, they sent him, grandfather Long sent him down here to the seminary, the Louisville Presbyterian Seminary, and it was on Broadway, which is now the University of Louisville, edition. Well, anyway, I guess maybe it's the Kentucky, I don't know what it is now, but anyway, he was on Broadway, about a square, the seminary was about a square from the University of Louisville.
Okay.
So he took all the work at the seminary, but he didn't ask for ordination because he knew they would kick him out. He did because his ideas had changed. He became disillusioned with them. However, in the meantime, while he was going to the seminary, it was about the time that the people 17 years old were entering the Army, and he felt so badly about not entering, but they asked the seminary students not to enter the Army. So he went out and nursed the soldiers at Fort Camp Taylor every night. They had the flu epidemic, you see, and the seminary, they didn't care too much for that because they thought he'd bring it back to the seminary. But he kept on doing it, and he didn't bring it back to the seminary. But then in the meantime, he had a mission out on Preston Street, the Presbyterian Home Mission Board, and Mr. Gernert was the charge of it. He wanted to start a mission so that it could develop into a church. And they expected Glenn to have chicken dinners and things to make money, to make a church. But Glenn didn't think that was what the people needed. He thought they needed more social things like sex classes for the children, because so many of them were home alone when they were teenagers. And then they also stole from the people stores around there. And of course, after Glenn was there a while, the stores said everything was much better than it had been before.
Yeah, so the kids just didn't have any
and so
real
Glenn thought he was
supervision.
on the right track. However, the mission board didn't like it, and so then they let Glenn go, and then the people wouldn't come. So then they hired Glenn back, and they were paying him $120 a month. And so, of course, all this while he was going to seminary. And in the summer, he was preaching where they needed him. Like he went to Canada and preached, I think, 2 times. And then he preached at the church on Cherokee Road when the minister was gone in the summer. And then he also preached out at, I don't know, the little church out on Old Brownsboro Road.
And what year would this have been?
Pardon?
Roughly what year would this have been?
This would be 7 years on to 1917.
Okay.
See what I mean?
So in the mid to early 20s, $120 a month is pretty good.
Yes,
pretty good money, huh?
And so then they took Glenn back, and they had him a while, and then they saw he wasn't going to have the chicken dinners that they wanted. So then they fired him, So in the meantime, he had decided when he wasn't going to be a minister, that he would like to be a medical missionary. So he went down to the University of Louisville and took science classes, and was an assistant in the biology department, and he got $70 a month for that. And of course, after he lost out at the mission, he had to use that to live on.
Right.
And also, when he was at the seminary, he did short order cooking at night to make money down on 4th Street, one of those short order places. And he had learned to cook when he was in high school because he and another boy on a dare took a cooking course. So that had helped him there, Well, so then he was, after he left the mission, of course he had to rent rooms someplace else, because he couldn't live there. And so then he wasn't really making enough. The $70 a month was wasn't enough really to live on because he
Mhm.
had to pay over $50, I think $52 a month rent or something. But Glenn always
Mhm.
lived at a nice place. I mean, he always liked the best of
Uh-huh.
everything, you know. And in the meantime, I graduated from high school, and I got a scholarship, 4-year scholarship to the University of Louisville. So of course I was going down there. First they didn't want to give it to me because I was living out in the country.
Mhm.
But they, since Papa had the office in town, well then they gave it to me, you know.
Mhm.
And so then I was going to the university, and we were, at that time, we dated anybody. Even though we were pinned to one boy, we would still date everybody else. And they would too, see what I mean?
Mhm.
That was just the
Kind of.
custom at that day and age.
So it wasn't this going steady didn't have the same meaning that it has
No,
nowadays.
only that we did think if we felt the same way after we graduated, we would get married. See what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was pinned to a guy, but I was going with everybody else anyway. See what I
Mhm.
mean? Well, as it was, he graduated the year before I did, so he went away over to Indiana University to get his master's degree. And of course, I kept dating people.
Mhm.
In the meantime, I decided my last year at the university that I would take some biology courses. Now, in eugenics and genetics.
Mhm.
I had never taken biology though.
Okay.
And so at that time, the university was on Broadway, near 2nd Street, right across from the high school, the boys' high school, St. Xavier's. And we walked over to the medical school on First and Chestnut for our chemistry classes.
Mhm.
And then when I took the biology courses, it was a building right next to the medical school.
Okay.
And it was a building that had the law school in it and then the biology things, you know.
Mhm.
And so then when I went over to take my biology, my classes in eugenics and genetics, I had to pass through a little room that Glenn was sitting there at the microscope. You know, so we
Mhm.
always said hello to anybody we saw at the
Mhm.
university.
Right.
In that day and age, everybody knew everybody else, you know.
Mhm.
So I said hello everyone time I went
Mhm.
past.
Mhm.
Well, it was real strange. Then one day he had to take Dr. Middleton's class.
Is that the
And-
class that you had?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was going to teach it.
Yeah. And so then my friend Mildred was in the class with me.
Mhm.
And so she leaned over to me and said, "Who does this remind you of?" And I knew who she meant because he spoke just like the boy that I was pinned to.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
uh-huh.
And we got the giggles. It's a wonder he didn't kick us out, but
Mhm.
we got the giggles so bad. So then when it came time, I was on a committee to help with the senior business, you know, when
Mhm.
we were supposed to graduate. And he was supposed to graduate the year I did
Mhm.
from the university.
Mhm.
But he was working so much with white rats for Dr. Middleton that he skipped a lot of his mathematics classes, and he thought it wouldn't make any difference since he was an A student in them.
Mhm.
But the professor wouldn't pass him since he had missed too many classes. So then he couldn't graduate that year. However, his name came up for annual and a picture in the annual. So when his name came up, I said, "I'll take it, you know, to sell him the annual," which I
okay.
did. You know,
Mhm.
that was an excuse for me to talk to him.
Oh, okay.
So then,
Okay.
then I sold him the annual, which
Mhm.
he never picked up even after we got married.
Oh.
But anyway, and he never had his picture taken or anything to put in it. But he graduated the next year. He just had to pull in the hours, you know. He
Mhm.
just had to
Right.
go to the classes.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, there was something I wanted to tell you about that.
When you went to sell him the annual, or when you all were
Oh,
both
no,
working on
no.
that
One time walking back
committee?
from the class,
Mhm.
you know, I thought to myself, now Mildred wasn't with me that day,
Mhm.
I thought, he'd make a nice husband, but Wappen and Papa wouldn't like him.
Okay.
Because, see, Papa always wanted me to marry a businessman because he thought he would be able to
Mhm.
take care of me better.
Right.
You know, earn
Mhm.
more money. And all the people I always liked, and the boy I was pinned to, were professor types. In fact, he ended up being the head professor in languages out at Oklahoma University, you know.
Mhm.
But everyone I went with was going to be in education. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? They
mhm.
just like that, and that's a type I like,
Right.
see? Well, anyway, then Glenn started coming to see me. Well, not then, no. He didn't then, not that year, because that year I graduated.
Okay.
And Papa owned a ballpark, and the ballpark had won the Eastern Division, and they were going out to San Francisco to play the Western Division for the Little World Championship.
Okay.
And so Papa gave me a trip out there, and a trip through the Panama Canal to Cuba, and as my gift for graduation.
For graduation.
And he gave that one to Cuba because, see, Nan, the girl that had sort of been a nursemaid to us, and then Papa had later sent her to business school, and she worked in the office at the ballpark with him, and she had met Marina Acosta, a ball player from Cuba that worked for the team, the Louisville team, and she married him, see. So Papa knew that I could go with her, and then Wathan went with us too, and then so we stayed at San Francisco to watch the team play, and then we got on the boat and went through the canal, which was very lovely, and went to Cuba, and it was so nice being in Cuba from the standpoint of Rita's family, because, see, we knew a lot of people personally and could visit in their homes, and it was more, it was better than just being a tourist, you know.
Exactly.
And at that time, the real estate boom was on in Florida, and Papa had sent Florence down there to buy real estate, you know, and so then we got to see Florence when we passed through to come home, and I got home around in November, I think. And then I thought, well, I'll go back to the university and take my master's degree. In the meantime, my class had been the last one graduating on Broadway. So they had moved out to the campus where they are now.
Okay.
And so I guess I won't tell you about how they happened to pick that spot for a campus, but Papa had a lot to do with that. I'll tell you that at some time later.
Okay. Dad mentioned something about that last night when I was talking to him. He's trying to save you the Male High School, and he was talking about. We'll talk about that. I'll make the note for us to go back.
Well, you want me to tell you now? I can tell you right now if you think it's...
I'll tell you what, why don't we go ahead, since I'm not sure how much battery power I've got, let's stay focused on how you and Glenn met, and then we'll come back to that.
So then I went out to the campus, and of course I had to take biology, and because since I was going ahead now and specializing in that, I had majored in English when I was in undergraduate, because I felt I needed it. I knew I was poor in English, and I didn't have much reading in that or anything, and I thought I needed that, and I didn't think I would work particularly. You know what I mean? I wasn't pointing toward any special work.
Right.
So I took English because I thought I'd need it. But I was interested now in this genetics and eugenics, so I needed the biology background.
Okay.
And so then Dr. Middleton put me under Glenn's charge doing experiments with Prometheum. And then I had Glenn in the biology, he was instructor in the biology lab work, you know.
Okay.
So then I got to see a lot of him. And then he started dating me, you know, that semester, which was leading up to June, see.
Okay.
And so then when it came June, now meantime, see, he's lost his job at the mission.
Right.
And he's
$70 a month,
he had been,
whatever.
He had been engaged to a girl, but he had broken that off. I know she must have been pushing him to get married and take a pulpit, see what I mean?
Okay.
And he wasn't about to do that. And so then he started going with me, and this boy that I had been going to in you know, Winnebago, Indiana University, well, he saw somebody up there too he liked, so we kind of drifted away, you know. And then Glenn said, well, he would have to go back to Pennsylvania because that $70 a month wasn't enough for him to live on, you know, that he was getting at the university.
Right.
So I didn't want to be separated, and he didn't want to be separated from him. So we met down at the Mezzanine Brown Hotel, Mezzanine, one day, and we decided, well, we'd get married. And one of Glenn's students had told him that he could get a job for him in Detroit.
Okay.
So we decided to get married and go to Detroit.
Just on the faith that the student that he had
would
really did have a job
yeah,
that would pay more.
He didn't have a job or anything. That was so unlike Glenn.
Well,
but
how
then
did he propose to you, or did you propose to
well,
him, or
we
how
just,
did it?
I don't know, I think it just came simultaneously. Well, we could get married, see what I mean? Maybe I suggested it, I don't know, see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So then that's what we decided.
Now, had he met your family at all?
Oh, yes.
Through...
Now, in the meantime, he had been courting me.
Okay.
You know, and coming
Okay.
out the farm, and Papa hardly looked at any of my boyfriends because he wasn't interested in them. You know what I mean? He'd say how I'm doing, that was all. But Mother would talk to him, and Mother had long conversations with Glenn about health and everything. 'Cause
Okay.
Glenn was,
So now, up until the point that you all decided to get married,
yeah.
how long had you actually been dating, or
Well, I
seeing?
guess